Hi everyone, I am Sreekanth. We are discussing programming in C language. The topic is about program fundamentals. The agenda of this session is about errors like bug, what is bug, what is debug, what is an exception, what is an exception handling, what is an error, different types of errors, compile time versus runtime, and a suitable examples. So in this session, we'll discuss in detail about what different types of errors commonly occurred in the programming, and these terminologies we are using in what programming languages. First, we go with the bug. Bug is nothing but an error occurred in a program. A bug is a software bug is an error, flaw or fault in a computer program or system that causes it to produce an incorrect or unexpected result or to behave in unintended ways. Most bugs arise from mistakes and errors made in either a program's design or its source code or in components and operating system used by such programs. A few are caused by compilers producing incorrect code. A program that contains many bugs and or bugs that seriously interfere with its functionality is said to be buggy, means defective. Simply you can remember a bug is an error occurred in a program. Okay. About debug, the process of finding and fixing bugs is termed debugging. Debugging is the name that programmers give it to the activity of locating and removing errors from programs. So once the errors are known to exist from testing the program, a programmer who is testing a program is often looking for new bugs to correct, classifying bugs like token error, syntax constraint error, execution error, and intent error. Simply you can remember debug is a process of finding, rectifying, fixing, removing bugs is termed as what? Debugging. Okay. Exception. See, an exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that disturbs the normal flow of the program's instruction. Simply, you can remember exception is nothing but what? Abnormal termination. See, I can give some example. See, in the program, some set of statements are like that: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Assume first statement is what? Valid statement. Okay. The second statement is also valid statement. Assume the third statement I wrote like 10 by 0. Okay. The fourth statement is also valid. Fifth statement valid. Sixth statement valid. So on. N statements are valid. Just assume it. Okay. See, these exceptions are generally raised at what? Runtime. Okay, two types of environment I told you, right? One is compilation time, another called runtime environment. The first statement executed successfully because it is a valid statement. Second statement is also what? Valid statement. It is also executed successfully. But third statement, what happens? Here, divided by 0. Anything by 0 is what? Infinity. 0 by anything is 0. But anything by 0 is what? Infinity. Correct or not? It takes what? Infinity. Means the cursor is going to be, or program is going to be terminated here itself. Even though these statements are what? Valid statement, but program is not checking. This type of situation is called exception. Simply you can remember exception is an abnormal situation. Due to this situation, program is terminated abnormally. Even this fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, so on n statements are valid statement, but still program is terminated abnormally due to this third statement. To avoid this situation, we are using a concept called exception handling. Some programming languages supports what? Exception handling. Exception handling is the process of responding to the occurrence of exceptions, anomalous or exceptional conditions requiring special processing during the execution of a program. Several high-level programming languages like C++, Java, .NET, PHP, Python supports exception handling. See, using this exception handling, that error is going to be handled, exception is going to be handled, and instead of terminating program abnormally, we are going to be executing program what? Normally, using some special keywords are supported by some programming languages like try keyword, catch keyword, throw keyword, throws keyword, finally keyword, like that. Using these keyword, we are going to be avoid these what? Exceptions at runtime. So that is what exception handling. Okay. About error. What is an error? An error is a mistake, misconception, or misunderstanding on the part of a software developer. In the category of developer, we include software engineers, programmers, analysts, and testers. An error describes any issue that arises unexpectedly that causes a computer do not function properly. Computers can encounter either software errors or hardware errors. Generally, these errors is going to be occurred in computer in the software errors or hardware errors. Software errors are the most common types of errors on a computer and are often fixed with what? Software updates or patches. Hardware errors are any defects with the hardware inside the computer or connected to the computer, although some hardware issues can be fixed with the firmware updates. Most of these errors are resolved by replacing the defective hardware. Several examples of errors like 404 errors, abandoned errors, abort errors, ignore error, retry, fail, access denied, blue screen of death, BSOD, critical errors, disk boot failures, drop in, drop out, fatal exception, file not found, general protections fault, like hard errors, hardware conflicts, human error, illegal command, illegal operation, inherent errors, machine error, overflow error, page fault error, parse error, propagated error, read error, recoverable error, runtime error, soft error, system error, timeout error, unrecoverable error, and so on. These are all what? Various types of errors. Just remember, an error is a mistake or misconception or misunderstanding on the part of what? Software developer. Okay. See, different types of program errors. Generally, these errors are occurred while constructing a program. First one is called syntax error. Errors due to the fact that the syntax of the language is not respected. Simply can remember, due to the bad syntax, if you are not following proper syntax of the particular programming language, these syntax errors are going to be caused and generates. Okay. Semantic errors. Errors due to an improper use of a program statements. Logical errors. Errors due to the fact that the specification is not respected. See, these logical errors completely the problem about what? Human or end users or programmers are responsible. Okay. Suppose our program is addition of two numbers, but you return instead of plus a symbol minus a symbol. See, that is not identified compilers, interpreters. That is a bad logic of the program. Okay. Who is the responsible? Programmer is the responsible. Compile time errors. See, this is the language translator we discussed, right? See, compile time errors checks syntax errors and static semantic errors indicated by the compiler. Okay, compiler checks about syntax and semantics errors. Compiler is responsible to generate compile time errors. Every programming language consists its own syntax and semantics. The programmer must follow that rules and regulations. If you are violated, that compiler is responsible to generate what? Compile time errors. Until unless you are clear the compile time errors, you cannot execute that program. Okay, these logical errors completely responsible by programmer. Okay, bad logic of the program. Runtime errors. These errors are not identified at compilation time. These errors are not identified by compiler, but it generated at what? Runtime. So dynamic semantic errors and logical errors that cannot be detected by what? Compiler. Just only I give an example, right? Like divided by zero errors, like exceptions. These are all rise at what? Runtime. Linkage errors, loader errors, memory insufficient errors. These are all comes under what? Runtime. See, this is what very common errors occurred while developing what? Or executing what? Programs. Okay. about syntax. Syntax error is nothing but what? Syntax of a computer language is the set of rules that defines the combination of symbols that are considered to be correctly structured statements or expressions in that language. See, what is syntax? Syntax is nothing but what? A rule, set of rules that defines a combination of what? Symbols that are considered to be correctly structured statements or expressions in that language. Remember, we are developing C related application. C provides some set of rules and regulations in the form of syntax. We must follow it. If you are not following, C compiler responsible to throw compile time errors. Okay, like if you go with the high level languages like C++, Java, .NET, PHP, Python, like compiler based programming languages, those are all consist compiler is responsible to generate what? Syntax errors. If you are not following that syntax of the particular programming language, those language translators are responsible to generate syntax errors. Okay, a syntax error is caused by a wrong spelling in command and a declaration. Okay, see, when the code violates the syntax of the programming language, syntax error occurs. The programmer must review and correct all syntax errors. A syntax error is an error in the syntax of a sequence of characters or tokens that is intended to be written in compile time. A program will not compile until all syntax errors are corrected. See, some programming languages are compiler based programming languages. Their compiler is responsible to generate compile time errors. Example like C, C++, Java. But if you go with the some languages like interpreted languages, their only interpreter is responsible. Only runtime environment is there. There is no compiler. There is no intermediate code generator. There also a syntax error may be detected during program execution. Means what? At runtime. Their interpreter is a language translator is responsible for error messages might not differentiate syntax errors from errors of other kinds. Okay, interpreter is responsible to generate that is syntax and semantics errors at what? Runtime. Okay, so generally in the real world environment, some programming languages are compiler based programming languages. Some programming languages are what? Only interpreter based programming languages. Like example like Python is a interpreter based programming language. Okay, but any programming language you are developing some application must follow what? Syntax. Okay, syntax is nothing but what? Set of rules. Remember it. Logic errors. See, these logic errors completely responsible by the programmer because of bad logic of the program. See, if the expected output and actual output do not match for any set of data, the program has a logic error. Compiler interpreter is not responsible to generate these errors. Human should understand and programmer should understand he wrote the wrong logic of the particular program. Design that causes inaccurate outputs. We can use desk check techniques to test logic errors. A logic error is a bug in a program that causes it to operate incorrectly, but not to terminate abnormally. So it won't terminate abnormally, but it going to be used what? Unpredictable outputs. Suppose I write an addition of two numbers. My problem of the given program is addition of two numbers, but instead of plus, I wrote minus. That is what? Bad logic of the program. Okay. Compilation error. Compilation error refers to a state when a compiler fails to compile a piece of computer program source code, either due to errors in the code or more unusually due to errors in the compiler itself. Okay, a compilation error message often helps programmers debugging the source code. Compile time, or sometimes we can call early binding. Compile time refers to the time duration in which the programming code is converted to the machine code. Machine is nothing but what? Binary code, and usually occurs before runtime. Say, already explained about compilation, right? Language translators there explained, compiler explained in the previous video session. Anyhow, compiler is responsible to do two jobs. First job, checking syntax and semantics of the particular programming language. Second job, it converts high level language instructions into what? Machine understandable instructions called object code or binary code. What are the common compile time errors like syntax errors, type checking errors, compiler crashes? Sometimes compiler also crashes. Due to that also it's going to be generate error. Missing parentheses like opening closed brackets. Those are all missing, also getting compile time errors. Printing the value of variable without declaring it, missing semicolons, every statement terminated with semicolon. Some programming languages strictly maintains the every statement must terminated with what? Semicolon. If you are missed that semicolon also generates what? Compile time error. Misspelling of keywords and identifiers. If you are not properly written that keyword name, identifiers name also generates what? Compile time errors. Okay. Who is responsible to generate these compile time errors? Compilation errors are generated by compiler. Compiler is a language translator. Remember it. Next point, runtime errors is an error that occurs while the program is running or executing. These errors are not identified and detected by compiler. Okay, these errors are raised at what? Runtime, while executing the program. See, it defects that are detected during that execution. Runtime error detection can identify defects that manifest themselves only at what? Runtime. Examples like file overrides and zeroing in on the root cause of the application crashing. Just now I told you, right? Divided by zero errors. Running slowly or behaving unpredictably. Examples like division by zero, like dereferencing a null pointer, running out of memory, linkage errors, loader errors, memory insufficient errors. These are all considered what? Runtimes. Several defects commonly detected by runtime errors detection includes race conditions, exceptions, resource leaks, memory leaks, security attack like vulnerabilities, like example like SQL injections, null pointers, uninitialized memories, buffer overflows. These are all what? Errors are occur. These are all the errors are occurred at what? Runtime. It is not detected at compilation time by compiler, but it is generated at what? Runtime. These type of errors are called runtime errors. Okay, and I try to give some common differences between compile time and runtime. See, what is the major differences between compile time and runtime? The compile time, these are produced at the compile time and they are detected by compiler is a language translator. Here coming to runtime, which are not generated by the compiler and produced an unpredictable result at the execution time. Generally it is occurred at what? Runtime. These errors are occurred at runtime. In this case, the compiler prevents the code from execution if it detects an error in the program. In this case, the compiler does not detect the error, so it cannot prevent the code from the execution. Coming to the compilation time, it contains the syntax and semantics errors such as missing semicolons at the end of the statement. Generally, it happens what? Syntax and semantics errors at the compilation time. Coming to runtime, it contains the errors such as division by zero, like exception, right? Due to this, abnormal situation happens at runtime. Program is terminated abnormally. Determining the square root of a negative numbers like linkage errors, loader errors, memory errors. These are all comes under what? Runtime. It includes the syntax error, semantics error, or misspelling errors at compilation time. It includes low out of space, mistype, the duplicity of function calls comes at what? Runtime. These errors can be easily detected and modified by compiler at compilation time. These errors cannot be easily detected and modified as they are created at what? Runtime. Compile time errors gets detected by compiler at the time of what? Code development and code execution. Runtime errors are not get detected by compiler and hence identified at the time of code running or execution. See, various examples of compile time errors like syntax errors, type checking errors, compiler crashes, missing parentheses, missing semicolons, misplacing of keywords, identifiers, or incorrect statements written in what? Program. These are all the reasons to generate what? Compile time errors. See, until unless compilation errors are free, you cannot enter into the execution environment. Remember it. Okay. So next, several examples of runtime errors like division by zero errors. Due to this, program is terminated abnormally. Sometimes we may call what? Exception. If this is a situation is called exception. The program is terminated abnormally. Even the next statements are valid statements. Still, due to this cause divided by zero error, program is terminated what? Abnormally. So this is also one reason for what? Runtime errors. Dereferencing a null pointers, running out of memories, race condition, exceptions, resource leaks, memory leaks, security attacks, vulnerabilities, examples like SQL injections, null pointers, uninitialized memory, buffer overflows. So these are all the several errors or chances to raise at what? Runtime. So today in this session, we discussed in detail about what commonly occurred errors in the program and some terminologies we are using in what? Program development and software developments like bug, debug, like bug bug, debug, exception handling, error, and different types of errors like syntax errors, semantics errors, logical error, and compile time errors, runtime errors. Also, we discussed some differences between what compile time and runtime. See, these terminologies are very important when you are developing what programs, program development life cycles, as well as what software development life cycles. Okay, so that's it for this session. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you all.